watching Gearz, brought to you by LMC Truck. Restore, maintain, customize.
In the fall of 2009, Congress enacted a Cash for Clunkers program, and within 2 months, approximately 700,000 late-model used vehicles were destroyed. But the question is, was this a successful program? Or has it done far more damage to our economy than we can imagine? You be the judge. The requirements for a clunker is that it has to be newer than 1983, has to get less than 18 miles to the gallon, and be a running, driving vehicle that's been insured and registered to the same owner for over a year. That means that every one of these vehicles were driven onto the lot as cheap, reliable transportation. And as you can see, most of these are in excellent shape.
Most of them, I would say, are between the 95 and 2000, but there are quite a few that's even newer than that. There's an 03 and 04 up there right now.
Once the deal was made, the engines were destroyed by the dealership, completely eliminating a source of cores and parts to engine rebuilders and repair shops, thus directly affecting their jobs and many, many more that depend on the used car market. From the dealership, the vehicle goes to the salvage yard where they have 90 days to strip it of usable parts.
I can sell anything off of it except the motor and transmission that I want to. And after 90 days, the car has to be destroyed.
Unfortunately, most salvage yards don't have the storage or the personnel to deal with the removal of all these extra parts. So, after pulling simple things like wheels and tires, the vehicle's gonna go in the crusher, carrying with it thousands of dollars of used parts. So, you not only lose the car, but you also lose any parts that could have been used to keep a similar car on the road. Do you know how expensive it would be to go buy a new fender or a grill for a Mercedes like this? And yet we just watched a perfect grill, fenders, hood, and doors be destroyed in just a few seconds. This is just crazy. Still not convinced? Here's something else to think about. The automotive aftermarket is one of the largest industries in the United States. It's every auto parts store, every manufacturer that fills those auto parts stores. It's every repair shop, every paint shop. It's every muffler and brake shop. It's every oil and tire company. Every company that manufactures and sells tools to work on your car. It's everything that keeps your car running, from replacement engines to that little pine tree air freshener that you hang on the mirror. What do you think happens to all those businesses and jobs if you pull all the used cars off the market and crush them? Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, what does it matter, man? This is just a bunch of junkers. Nobody cares about this stuff. Well, if we would have had that mentality back in 1973 when the first oil embargo hit, today there would be no Chevelles, no Mustangs, no Camaros, no Roadrunners on the road, because those were considered clunkers. And today, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry a year. And by taking vehicles that are 5 to 15 years old and crushing them before their time, we are destroying thousands of small businesses and all kinds of jobs that have to do with the aftermarket. So, if you don't think this has anything to do with you, you don't want to get involved, want to sit there, this is your automotive future. Now that we have your attention, I know some of you are probably thinking, so what is the solution here? I can't afford a new vehicle, but my older vehicle's not very efficient or it's about to die. Well, simple. You make your older vehicle last longer, you make it more efficient, heck, you bring it back to life utilizing that aftermarket. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, what we have here is a typical clunker. We have a Chevy Avalanche, and as you can see by this window sticker, this would qualify for clunker status. It only gets 16 miles to the gallon. But it is possible to take this out of clunker status by just adding some simple aftermarket parts. Parts that you can afford, parts that you can install. Now, I know that a lot of you are not professional mechanics or car builders, or you may not have the time and the tools to spend a lot of time working on your rig. So it's important that these modifications be simple and easy to do. So simple that anybody can do them. And these are, and we're going to prove it to you. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where today's subject is clunkers and how you can avoid driving one. Now, we've already shown you the stupidity of the government's Cash for Clunkers program. Now we're going to show you some simple upgrades that you can do for just about any vehicle that will help you get that fuel mileage up and give you more performance. That way you can continue to drive the vehicle you've got now and not waste a bunch of money on a new car payment. Now, since the late 80s, pretty much every vehicle that's rolled off the assembly line has a computer that controls the function of the engine. And it didn't take the aftermarket long to realize that if you tweak the computer, you can get more performance out of the engine. The problem with the early tuners, though, is they were just about performance. Well, that all changed when Bully Dog came out with this little black box called the GT Tuner. Now, this thing will give you the performance that you're after, but it will also give you up to 37% better fuel economy. Yeah, that's huge. And it does it by having a little driving coach in here that tells you when you're driving bad and wasting fuel. So now you have yet another voice riding around with you telling you what to do. Except this one actually saves you money and has an on-off switch. Yeah. Now, as you can see, there's not much here. This is very simple to put on, and that's what we're going to show you. First, plug the OBD2 adapter into the vehicle port underneath the dash on the driver's side and connect the cables. Next, run the power wire to the fuse box and connect it to a switched source so you have power when the key is on. Finally, mount the unit to the windshield or the dash and plug in the cable. Now that has got to be the simplest installation in the history of the aftermarket. But simple installation doesn't mean squat if it doesn't do what it says it'll do. So let's fire this thing up and see what we got. Downloading the GT Tuner is as simple as pushing a few buttons. Once it's downloaded, the push of a few more buttons allows you to change between different gauges and graphs. This allows you to test all aspects of your vehicle's performance. So, starting out with a dismal grade of F and 9 miles per gallon, we begin to work to see just how much this unit can improve on those numbers. Driving efficiency high, wasted energy 0, and down to the grade F. What the heck? Check this out. We're rolling along here at over 70 miles an hour. The RPMs are just over 2,000, and we're getting about 35 miles per gallon. Not bad, not bad, not bad. With the more efficient tuning and the performance of the programmer, it wasn't long before we saw some substantial increases, not only in our fuel economy, but also in our grade. So, you get substantial performance and economy upgrades, you get testing graphs, you get 0 to 60 times, you get all kinds of stuff out of this little black box. And the amount of performance and economy you get out of this black box depends on what you do with your right foot. So, it's gonna take some discipline, but this is a great way to get the best of both worlds. And if you want something like this, all you gotta do is go to drivinghard.com and order you one. Okay, so what's the next big area of improvement for an engine that's easy to do and would help any clunker? Simple, the air intake and the filter. Now, remember, an engine is really just a big air pump. It pulls air in, mixes it with fuel, and that's what burns and gives you your power. And that air-fuel mixture is very important. Now, when you restrict the air coming in, like this stock air intake and filter does, well, the engine's gonna burn more fuel and it's gonna give you less power for the fuel burned because you've got to have that air. So, we're gonna get rid of all this stock restrictive junk. We're gonna fix the problem. Now, if you don't think that this stuff is restrictive, man, take a look at that filter box. And this air intake tube, man, that looks like something out of a Star Wars movie. Definitely not letting your engine be the best that it could be. If you want that, you need to go to K&N. Now look at the difference in their air intake tube. Notice how smooth and curved that the radiuses are. Man, that thing is gonna flow air like a vacuum cleaner. Then, of course, they have that legendary filter that is warranted for 1,000,000 miles. Matter of fact, K&N guarantees that you will get the performance increases that they promise, or they'll give your money back. Nobody else has that kind of guarantee. That's why they're K&N. Now, one of the criteria for today's project is this stuff has to be easy to put on, and this is. So, grab your tools, let's get to work. And that is it. We've got more power, better economy in just a few minutes using the simplest of hand tools. And we've driven another nail in the coffin of that whole clunker myth. And we're not done yet. Hey, we're back and walking you through some of the simplest, easiest upgrades that anybody can do to a vehicle to get you the biggest bang for the buck in performance and fuel economy. Now, we've already showed you how to get air into the engine with an air intake and a performance filter. We've upgraded the computer with the GT tuner. Now we're going to show you how to get air out of the engine with a catback exhaust system. Okay, right now, I know a lot of you guys are going, no way, man. The last time I tried to do something like that, I spent all day on my back fighting an exhaust system that wouldn't fit. Ain't gonna happen. Well, that's because you were using the wrong exhaust system. You gotta get something that fits. Check it out. This is a catback exhaust system from Cherry Bomb, and basically it's designed to slide right in place of your stock exhaust system from the catalytic converter's back. Now, as you can see, this is a very simple kit, starting with this intermediate pipe with a resonator. Then that connects to this vortex muffler. It's going to give you great flow and an incredible sound. And then the final piece is the tailpipe. It's all 3-inch tubing, and it ends with a polished stainless steel tip to finish it off. So you basically have 3 major components and a couple of clamps. First, pull off all the stock system from the Y-pipe back. Now, a Sawzall will definitely speed up this process with a well-placed cut in the middle. Also, some penetrating lube on the stock rubber hangers will help the bracket slide right out. With the old junk out of the way, you just bolt the intermediate pipe in place, reusing the stock rubber mounts. Then slide the muffler onto the pipe. And finally, slide the tailpipe into the muffler, once again utilizing the stock rubber hangers. The last step is to adjust and align the system, and then just tighten the clamps. See, I told you this was easy. No bending, no twisting, no jerry-rigging to make it fit. It just goes on. Now, I know we have a floor lift, and you probably don't, but you don't have to have a floor lift to do a project like this. You can do it with floor jacks and jack stands in your driveway. You're just not going to have this much room. And considering the benefits that you're going to get by putting on a system like this, there's really no reason to keep this old stock stuff on your vehicle any longer than you have to.
Now, Quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
You know, there's no question that wiring can be the most frustrating part of your project, especially if you're trying to solder a joint and all of a sudden you realize that you don't have enough hands to hold the soldering iron, the solder, and the wire all at the same time. So you end up putting it in your mouth and trying to do that, or you're trying to use your leg, or just chasing it all over the place trying to get it done. There's got to be a better way, and there is. All you have to do is take the cap off a can of spray paint, and then take your snips and cut a slot in opposite sides of the cap. Now, just take your wire and slide it down into the slots. As you can see, the cap will hold the wire in place, leaving both of your hands free to solder like you should. Also, you got a little catch cup down in here that's gonna grab any solder that might drop down so you don't make a mess. This will save you so much time and frustration, you're not gonna believe it. Now, you're still gonna wish you had a third hand from time to time when you're working on your projects, but not when you're soldering. Now, if you'd like to learn more tips like this that will make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website. In our quest to destroy the clunker myth and get better performance and fuel economy out of a vehicle, we've covered computer upgrades and getting air in and out of an engine. What we haven't covered is the fire that actually happens inside the engine that burns that air-fuel mixture. Now, obviously, the more efficiently we can do that, the more power and economy we get out of every drop of fuel. That is where spark plugs come in. Now, in the endless sea of spark plugs out there, you got a lot of choices and a lot of claims being made. So it's kind of hard to know what's real and what's hype. But there is one spark plug that seems to keep rising to the top of the pile and getting everybody's attention. And it's the E3 plug with its unique electrode design. Let's take a look at it. By basically building an electrode with a diamond-shaped hole in the center, you put the flame right in the combustion chamber where it needs to be, instead of partially shrouding it like a traditional plug does. Now, that's all great in theory, but do they actually work that way? That's what we're going to find out. Now, what I've got here is a very simple test machine that utilizes a coil with two outlets, and it's going to allow us to compare two spark plugs head to head. Now, something like this is going to cut through the BS really quick because you can't fake what's about to happen here, and it's actually going to show us what happens with the spark as that coil's firing. So we're going to take the E3 plug, thread it into one side, traditional plug, which will remain nameless, and put it in the other side. Wow, as you can see, the E3 plug is kicking out a much bigger spark as it hits all the multiple points in the diamond-shaped opening. That is pretty amazing. But to really see what that spark turns into inside of a combustion chamber, here is some actual time-lapse photography of the firing of an E3 plug and a conventional plug in a cylinder. The difference is unmistakable. Who'd have thought that you could get that big of a difference out of a simple spark plug design? And replacing the spark plugs in your vehicle is something anybody can do. Now, of course, the next question is, where do you get all this stuff? Well, we already said that you could get the Bully Dog GT tuner at drivinghard.com. The rest of the stuff you can get from Style and Trucks. Now, hopefully this sheds some new light on this whole clunker deal and lets you see that you don't have to buy a new car and go into debt. Not when there's a huge aftermarket out there full of great products to help you keep an older vehicle running for a long, long time. The choice is yours. Just make sure you don't lose it.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Miller Electric, the leading manufacturer of arc welding and cutting equipment for your business or home shop.
Today's What Are You Working On is really cool because it's about a kid that's about 18 years old that set out to build his dream vehicle even though he didn't have hardly any money. Now, his name is Michael Gibbons. He's from Oakland, Maryland, And Michael always wanted a 4x4 Camaro. Now, of course, you can't buy those anywhere, so he knew he was going to have to build it. So the first thing he did was buy a couple of model kits, one of a Camaro, one of a 4x4 truck, and he put the two together to get a vision of what he wanted to build. Then he proceeded to do the thing in real life. Now, as you can see, he started with a 79 Camaro and made it to a 74 Blazer chassis. Now, the cool thing about this picture, notice the transfer case and the floor jacks and the basketball and everything on the ground beneath the car. That's the kind of thing that would scare most people to death, but not Michael. No, he kept working on it. Take a look at this. The vehicle slowly starting to turn green, starting to come together as he slowly put this thing together. Now, the cool thing is, Michael did all the work himself. Here's a shot of him building the engine, once again using the same green color. And then here's a shot of him sitting inside of it. Now, if you'll notice on the dash, that's the little model that he built early on that he kept with him the whole time to give him inspiration. And then finally, as he says, after 5 years, $500 and a lot of swapping, trading, building of parts, it was done. Here's a shot of it. Now, some of you guys may be looking at that and going, well, what the heck's he gonna do with that? Well, Michael would like to show you. This is what he does. There's the 4x4 part, and then of course it's street legal, so Michael drives it on the street and he takes it to car shows once in a while. Here he is taking home the big trophy. This is a great example of somebody that didn't have a lot of money, but they had the vision and the desire to build something, and they went out and built it anyway. Michael, great job. Now, I don't know if you're a welder or not. It doesn't say in here if you are. But we hooked up with our buddies at Miller Welding, and we are going to give you an auto-darkening helmet to help you on your next project. Now, I recommend you don't lend this to your buddies because you probably won't get it back. Now, the rest of you guys, if you got something that you want to see featured on the show, send some pictures, send some things in to staceydavid.com. We'll do our best to get it on the air. All right, you've seen what Michael's working on. You know what I'm working on. Now it is your turn. Get out there, work on something. We'll see you next week.